actually an ArriveCAN app. It was a directorate or a department level standing offer through TBIPS or through, in this case, BADSI. And so that's the staff augmentation contract that was used to facilitate this, from my understanding. And it was 20 contractors for 3 years for approximately 100 days per year, which is basically part-time.
Thank you. Could you describe your relationship, if any, with GC Strategies and also Coradix?
Sure. I don't have a personal relationship or professional relationship with GC. I mean, they, from my understanding, again, getting read into the file, they were, part of communication from CBSA that there was a task authorization coming that needed to be fulfilled through GC, and as the prime contractor and as a general contractor for that contract, we facilitated that. So that's basically my interaction with GC, which is nil. I've never spoke to any of the principals, and again, I've just been read into the file, and this is what I know. As far as Coradix is concerned, it's a much different relationship. I've been, with them since 2001, 2002. When I first started this company, from Barhaven on my kitchen table, and going after, the first Indigenous contract that I was awarded in the first year with the RCMP and Bell Canada, and it was to provide hardware into the RCMP. Obviously being, one guy and trying to start a business, I partnered up with Coradix because I know some people, and we've had a very good relationship since then. It's been a kind of a shared services model between two companies. They do, much different work than we do at Dalian as far as security is concerned. So it seemed like a good fit, and and so it's been a 22 or 23 year relationship with Coradix. Yeah.
I'd like to hear, in your view, what is the timeline of the events? We've been talking about various dates already in this meeting. What is the timeline of events that has led us to this point?
Timeline of events. So I got to start back again. I'm buried 2 gates deep doing high assurance security, trying to get it out to our warfighters. So getting read into this file was probably my first shot back in October of this year, realistically. When we got the notification that we needed to go and talk to Ogo. So, from a timeline perspective, that's kind of where I sit from getting read into the file. But after I did, gain some knowledge on it, my understanding that this goes back to 2019. We have a very good contract, or had a very good contract with CBSA, a staff augmentation contract through BASD, and we were doing some good things over there, and that the intent for CBSA was actually to bring over 25% of their server applications from CBSA on-prem to AWS Cloud. And so I think that's kind of where it started in 2019. And then obviously, into the early 2020s, we had this whole COVID outbreak thing happen, and all of this craziness that happened with, the ramp up to getting ArriveCAN, out the door. And so, we were a small part of that. We were 4.9 million of that, 1.6 million a year, 20 contracts at part-time. So, from that perspective, that's kind of where I think it started. And then where it finished was May 2023, I think, from what I understand. And that was certainly, well before I started with the public service.
Have you spoken to the RCMP on anything to do with government contracting?
Yeah, no. The RCMP has not been in contact with me at all. No.
Have you spoken to anyone else on this issue? Anyone else who's been looking into the matter, for example, the Auditor General?
No, I have had no interaction with the Auditor General at all, other than I know that our staff noticed the discrepancies within, the Auditor General's report, and they notified the Auditor General on the 30th of January this year of the discrepancy, that it wasn't 7.9, it was 4.9, but that never made it into the report.
You mentioned discrepancies in the report. You just mentioned one of them. Are there any other discrepancies that your staff or yourself have noted in the report that you brought to the attention or plan to bring to the attention of the Auditor General?
Yeah, sure. As it sits right now, I have read the report. I mean, I'm a certified contracts and procurement specialist. That's what I did for my first 100 and some odd days with D&D. And I've been around contracting forever, so I understand it completely. And what I can say, out of the gate is that when I read through the Auditor General's report, it's a good report, but it has vagaries and discrepancies in it, right? And there's incorrect information in it. And one of those incorrect areas is in our revenue stream. 7.9 is not 4.9, 4.9 is not 7.9, it's $3 million difference, and it's 60% delta. So, I mean, from that concept, right there, it's definitely a different aspect. The other side of it is that in key facts and findings, you've got a paragraph in there that says we found 18% of invoices submitted by the contractors that we tested did not provide enough information to determine whether the expenses related to the ArriveCAN, the expenses actually related to ArriveCAN or another IT project. But, I have a good number of notes on this, and I've gone through the entire thing, and, I've got lots of questions and things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. That is your time. Maintenant, vous avez la parole pour 6 minutes.
You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. First of all, Mr. Yu, could you tell us how many employees Dalian has had since 2008?
I tried to understand a bit of that, but unfortunately there was no interpreter in my ear.
So apparently there's a globe on the bottom of your screen. If you click on that, it will probably give you. J'ai arrêté là.
Est-ce que vous pouvez le recommencer?
Oui, absolument. Oui,
Merci
absolument.
beaucoup.
Oui.
Will I be able to take my time again? Yes.
I do, yeah, absolutely.
And what?
Okay.
Oh, so if you
Try it
click
again.
on that, you might get various options.
He makes ants.
Hit the globe.
I think he did.
Okay.
I think he's got it.
Okay, so I've got it on French right now, so if you want to try it again.
You might hear me in French. Alors, est-ce que vous m'entendez en anglais?
Are you hearing me in English or in French now? Is it working?
Right now.
Do you hear me in English? So, you heard what I said in English.
I did.
Très bien. Okay.
Very well then. So again, 6 minutes again, starting again from the top, like they say in Hollywood. Go ahead, Ms. Desgagneux. Starting again. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Yeo, first quick question. How many employees has Dalian had since 2008, please?
2008. Okay, so we had, I believe, up to 7 or 8 full-time employees during the 2008 to 2012, 2013 timeframe. And the reason behind that, well, obviously we were growing. That was a good time for us. But SSC had come in during the 2012, 2013 timeframe, and it changed a lot of our ability to execute with the government. And so there was a lot of downsizing after that and a lot of consolidation. So we've now, moved down, as a matter of fact, down to, 2 full-time employees. But where this kind of gets off the rails is that because we have a partnership with Caradix, right, we have a kind of a shared services model. And so, we were doing shared services before shared services became a thing.
Okay.
So,
Merci.
Yep.
Merci, Monsieur Yeo.
Thank you. The chronology provided by the Department of National Defense said that you began your employment on September the 19th, 2023. A contract was signed on that same date, September the 19th, 2023, by you. No, excuse me. It was signed on September 28th, 2023. 9 days later. Only 9 days later, you signed a contract, whereas you were in the full-time employment of the Department of National Defense. Mr. Yeo, when you began your employment, I'd like to call your attention to the fact that public servants must follow the Code of Ethics and Values of the public sector. And it's extremely clear in that Code of Public Sector Values and Ethics, you must declare any appearance of conflict of interest to a line supervisor. Did you do so on September the 29th, 2023?
Yeah. So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So in retrospect to that, and again, being buried 2 gates deep in D&D and what I do with high assured security there, and also on the 19th and even prior to that, starting to devolve myself from the company. I gave the ability for, as I was moving through the aspect of divestiture, my lawyers and everything else, it took some time, I will agree, and that timing is, not charitable to your timeline of being only a few days. But the short answer is, no, I did not inform anyone at the department that I signed anything, but then again, I did not actually sign it. I had a signature available for the staff at the office for them to use.
Monsieur, vous savez très bien qu'en cours, une signature a un effet juridique.
Sir, you know very well that in court, your signature will have legal value. If somebody places your signature on a contract, you're the one who's responsible. I hope you're aware of this because you're responsible for the contract, which is well, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was signed on September the 29th. Your signature appears, so you are responsible. You did not inform your hierarchical supervisor. That's at least regarding one very strong appearance of conflict of interest. The newspapers have told us, and according to public accounts, Dalian received roughly $150 million worth of contracts since 2008. I understand they're subcontractors, but for a company that had a maximum of 10 employees, that's a lot of money. Why accept a position at Department of National Defense paying under $100,000 when your two-person company was making $150 million in just a few years?
No, that's a good question, and I appreciate it. So yeah, we had some great years during 2008 and the run up to shared services. We had some pretty lean years between 2013 and now, basically, from a hardware software perspective, for sure. But my reasoning for getting back into the department was not based on money. I've done 36 years with the department in varying capacities, whether it's regular force, whether it's reserves, whether it's my contracting time and my 168 days, as a civil servant. But I got back in primarily to drive capability and high assurance, guarding solutions to the warfighters that are in harm's way out in the eastern flank of NATO. So that was my job there. That was my claim to what I do at the department. And because I was there for so long, I understood and I was at the pinnacle of my technical abilities. So it made sense for me to get in and drive technology down to the warfighters that need it the most. And that's primarily the reason, because I didn't do it for the money.
Mais pendant ce temps-là, il y avait quand même un compte.
But during that time, there was a signed contract by Dalian with your signature on it, granted by the Department of National Defense to carry out work. How many hours did you spend, and how many hours did Dalian spend on that last contract that I mentioned, signed on September 20th, 2023? What did Dalian do for that?
So again, I just got read into that part of it just recently because it was a very small contract. I think it was $40,000 or maybe $49,000 from what I'm aware of. But it was attached to a hardware sale.
C'est le salaire annuel moyen d'un Québécois.
That's the average annual salary of a Quebecer, $49,000 a year. So a small contract, well, I would perhaps use different terms.
It's but 90% of it, or 75 or 80% of it, goes back to the actual consultant doing the work. But to answer your question, though, there is precedence for how you handle conflict of interest within a 60-day period or windows of that time frame. And I did put in a no access, no contact, no non-disclosure with Dalian within that 60-day period. I actually signed that on the 10th of November, 2023, which was within the 60-day window. After that, we were working with lawyers and getting our stuff together as far as forms and everything was concerned, getting my divestiture done and that sort of stuff during the time frame, and that has already been submitted to D&D as well. But due to the hype and everything else around this particular ArriveCAN app, I ended up having to put in my resignation because I was still on probation because I was only there for 668 days. So.
Voilà. Une toute petite question, ça va? Non, ça va.
Okay, that's fine. Next.
Visually, you have the floor for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the witness for being with us today on what is a very important topic. My colleagues asked some questions, but I'll have you reiterate some of the responses you had clearly in relation to the origin of your company. When did your company start under the name Dalian?
Well, I started it myself in 2001, 2002. I don't have the exact date on me, but there's documents that stood up the company at that time frame, and I named the company myself. Yeah.
And when did you begin bidding on government contracts?